Hello and welcome here once again on Around the Wickets, Cricket's weekly brief on ThePapare.com. Now, some interesting matters to discuss today, and first and foremost, let's look at Sri Lanka's tour of New Zealand. Of course, we do know that New Zealand is not a destination that subcontinental teams generally enjoy. Now, the reason for that is the conditions that prevail in New Zealand. New Zealand is so different to, shall we say, Sri Lanka or India, for that matter even Pakistan or Bangladesh. So the batsmen generally tend to get challenged on conditions like that. And also the spinners. Now the Sri Lankans have taken 3 spinners on that tour, on this tour I should say. And I wonder whether Rangana Herath might be the choice to play on those pitches. Now I say this because Herath is an orthodox spinner, a spinner that tends to get a lot off the pitch, needs a bit of dry surface to exploit. He's not someone who skids on and hits the pads. Now, New Zealand is a place where you need spinners where they'll look to skid on and hit the pads. Now, in that case, I would think Dilruwan Perera could be an option that the Sri Lankans will look at. But what's very, very important is to watch out for the ones who perform in the opening 3-day game. Now, the opening 3-day game is going to give the Sri Lankan management an indication as to whom to look at come the test match against New Zealand. 2 test matches and 2 important test matches. And an area that the Sri Lankans will be a bit concerned about is the fact that it's very likely that they will be blooding 2 players, or at least bringing in 2 youngsters in the top 3, followed by the experienced Sri Lankan batting lineup. Now the question here is, will it be Kusal Mendis or will it be Udara Jayasundara who will open the batting for Sri Lanka? My hunch is it could be Kusal Mendis, simply to maintain that left-hand, right-hand combination, and Udara Jayasundara to bat at number 3, where we've always had a left-hander. We've had Sangakkara at 3, Triman had tried his hands at 3. So very likely that Udara Jayasundara may be the number 3 with Kusal Mendis opening the batting. Having said that, is Kusal Mendis able to cope with the New Zealand conditions? That's going to be the massive question that everybody's going to ask. Now, Kusal Mendis, to his credit, had 2 decent knocks in that test match against the West Indies. But don't forget, the pitch he was playing on was a slow pitch. The Sri Lankan chairman of selectors, Kapila Vijayagunawardena, said he faced fast bowlers who were bowling at 145 plus. Agreed, but that was off the hand, not off the pitch. Because the pitch was slow and low, and Kusal Mendis didn't struggle too much. But come New Zealand, it has the carry, it has the pace, it has the seam. So, lot to do with the technique. So, let's hope for Sri Lanka's sake that Kusal Mendis will perform, because Sri Lanka needs a good opening partnership. Udara Jayasundara, I believe he should be the number 3, or at least he should be in that side. I would have opened with him, despite he and Dimuth Karunaratne being left-handers, because Udara has been an opener from that under-19 stage. Played for Ananda College, played for Sri Lanka under-19, played for Sri Lanka A, and he's been someone who's worked himself up the ladder, and not someone who's kind of pushed into this position. And on that last tour of New Zealand, Sri Lanka watched him very carefully, and Udara Jayasundara was one player who came up with flying colours on that Sri Lanka A tour. So let's see. I think it will be Kusal Mendis and Udara Jayasundara at 3, and then the batting order. Sri Lanka should look at 3 seamers. I believe Nuwan Pradeep, Prasad are the established ones, and I won't be surprised if Dushmantha Chamira plays. And Rangana Herath, for his experience and for where he is in the pecking order, may get the nod ahead of Dilruwan Perera. But I think Perera is someone who doesn't spin the ball too much, but skids on and might be the ideal kind of bowler in New Zealand. So let's wait and see. Let's see how the Sri Lankans will look at. As I said, the opening 3-day game was going to be very, very critical when it comes to the final 11 of the Sri Lankan lineup coming into this test match. Now, coming back home, the domestic season, the much looked forward to Sri Lanka domestic season is just about getting into its act. Of course, don't forget that the rain has caused the Sri Lankan clubs to face a few problems. There have been pitches that the ball has really not lived up to its expectation, where from a batting point of view, where the batsmen have struggled, the ball have seemed, we haven't still seen those big scores because there have been a lot of rain and the pitches have been covered. And besides, Sri Lanka are playing a 1-day cricket and 3-day cricket, together. In the past, it used to be a 1-day tournament, then the 3-day tournament. But now we got midweek games. So it's going to be a challenge for the young Sri Lankan batsmen to cope with these situations and with these changes, white ball, red ball. And one other thing that I've seen in this domestic cricket scene is we've got very few experienced players in playing in this first class tournament. Lots of players have migrated to Australia to play their cricket or looking for greener pastures. So the playing field, as far as the 14 first class clubs are concerned, they look very level. They look very, very similar. Players aren't greatly experienced. They're all very young and just a few experienced cricketers in the circuit. I could name a few like Jahan Mubarak to start with, Faviz Maharouf playing for the NCC, Kaushal Silva who's not on the tour playing for the SSC, Tilina Kandambi, few names like that. But by and large, it's a very young, a new-looking Sri Lankan domestic season where so many under 23, then under 19 and young players playing. So it's interesting. It's a challenge in a sense to see how these young cricketers would cope as they come up to the first class level, and are they fit enough to go to the next level when it comes to international cricket. So that's the big question ahead of or in front of the Sri Lankan selectors and in front of Sri Lanka cricket. Well, another interesting happening in Australia, the day-night test match, the pink ball, that experiment came through. I wonder whether it came through with flying colours because the test match was over in 3 days. But is it something that cricket is going to have? Now, are we going to see more day-night cricket? Are we going to see more pink ball cricket come the years as we wait for cricket to unfold? Now, one thing about Test cricket is, or one thing about pink ball cricket is, I believe ICC is looking to try and give it a new face. Now, T20 cricket has taken the world by storm because people are watching it not for the game. I think it's for more the entertainment because people go there, they like the atmosphere, they like the batting dominating the ball. So it's a completely new thing. Now, Test cricket is one thing that is considered old-fashioned. Now, are the ICC looking to rebrand it, re-market it to the world? That's one question. And or do we really need day-night cricket? Are the spectators declining? Are the spectator interests waning? Do we need something different in Test cricket? Now, a few questions that you need to watch out is, what about the conditions? What about the dew factor? What about the way the pitch would react? Now, these are all factors that the captains will have to come to grips with. Now, when you play a day game, as we call it, Test cricket, when you have a dry day, you know that you start off the first session, you have a little bit for the fast bowlers, then it turns out to be beautiful where the batsmen enjoy, and when the sun comes out and dries the pitch, then the bowlers starts coming in with the spinners coming into action. But when you play day-night cricket, the dew can settle the pitch. The dew can take away the dryness. So how will the bowlers react? Now, these are all questions that you need to look at, and how will the ball react, particularly in the subcontinent when you're playing day-night cricket. Now, these are questions that are unanswered. Now, I'm very interested to see how the game will move forward. Lots of players are excited, few aren't. Will we have day-night cricket in Sri Lanka? So that's a question I want to leave with you, and let's see whether cricket would go that way, whether cricket would take that route as we keep watching or as we keep looking at Test cricket. So that's it on this week's ThePapare.com. For all the latest on cricket, visit ThePapare.com and also visit our Facebook page for all that is cricket.